Now to the gruesome and intensely emotional case of the Massachusetts mother on trial for killing her 3 small children. Week 3 of the Lindsay Clancy trial wrapped up today with a trove of digital evidence. Jurors saw chilling internet searches asking, "Can you treat a sociopath?" alongside text messages planning dinner with her husband and ordering a Mediterranean power bowl an hour before killing her 3 children. Prosecutors also played footage from inside the bloody crime scene where Clancy tried to take her own life, first slashing her wrists and throat and then jumping out of a second-story window. She survived the attempt and is now paralyzed from the waist down. That footage stood in stark contrast to this image, also presented in court today, taken 2 weeks before the murders. It shows the entire Clancy family enjoying a day at the museum. Prosecutors are trying to prove that Clancy was an engaged mother, well aware of her surroundings. They argue that she is a cold, calculating killer who meticulously planned the murders of 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan, in between sending smiley-faced text messages to her husband. This is the last photo taken of Cora from a doctor's appointment Clancy took her to on the day that she died. But Clancy contends that she was deep in the throes of postpartum psychosis, over-medicated on dozens of doses of prescription drugs by a team of poorly coordinated mental health professionals. Clancy repeatedly asked for inpatient care and was repeatedly turned away. In court today, the state trooper who examined Clancy's cell phone read a note that Clancy had written to herself months before the murders.
I resent my other children because they prevent me from treating Cal like my first baby. I'm sad and depressed because I am not able to parent my 3rd child like my first. I want to treat any one of my babies like my first, but I know that's not a feasible possibility. I'm also probably having a bit of an internal conflict because my whole life I wanted to have a lot of kids. I still don't want Cal to be our last, but I have a lot of figuring out to do before I have another. I'm on the fence about starting a new medication for anxiety/depression. I just want to feel happy.
Investigators also found searches on Clancy's phone for postpartum depression, bipolar disorder, intrusive, and perhaps crucially to the defense, hallucinations made on Clancy's phone in the days before the murders. Clancy's defense team says she heard a man's voice in her head that night, commanding her to kill. Emotions in court have reached a crescendo this week. Yesterday, Clancy began sobbing so loudly during testimony from the medical examiner that proceedings in court were brought to a halt.
What about injuries?
All right, Counsel, we're going to take a break this time, all right?
So do the searches on Clancy's phone prove that she was desperately searching for a way out of her psychosis? Or do they show a fully functioning mother who hid her true intentions from those closest to her? Here with us again is former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani and criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool. All right, Brian, you first. You answer the question. Which did they show? What's the evidence show?
Hey, Elizabeth, nice to see you. It could be both, right? Depends on the jurors. How are they interpreting this evidence? You could have a group of jurors looking at that and saying, hey, look, she is trying to create an image that will allow her to get away with this murder, right? Having the dinners, going to the museum. But look, it can also be interpreted, you just had a note read, right? Where she is reaching out for help. The difference here, Elizabeth, there's a pattern of many months leading up to the murders in which she is crying out for help and she's seeking help. And I've talked about it before, but why wasn't there even a minimal intervention, for example, of doing family therapy? Why didn't anybody prescribe mom, dad, kids, grandparent?
Yeah.
Let's put in place a plan, for example, where she's not allowed to be alone with the kids until she improves. So it cuts both ways.
Yeah, I think I made the point with both of you last night that I mean, if my sister or somebody close to me said some of the things that she said about having thoughts about hurting my kids, the first thing I would do is get her away from her children. Neama, testimony centered today on all these internet searches on Clancy's devices. and there were a lot. She searched for information on schizophrenia, psychosis, postpartum depression, hallucinations, insomnia. Doesn't this paint a troubling picture?
It is a troubling picture, and there's no doubt that she is mentally unwell. She's depressed, suicidal. But Elizabeth, it's not enough under the law. So this is the law that is going to be read to the jurors, and it's the model penal code. The prosecution has the burden, of course, but the defense really needs to put on evidence to show one of two things. Because of her mental illness, she doesn't understand the criminality and wrongfulness of her actions. That's a cognitive test. I think if you're conducting internet searches and talking to your husband about takeout and what to order, cognitively, she's there. The second is if you're unable to conform your conduct to the law. That's volition. So that means you can't stop yourself from doing something. Maybe they have that. But on the cognitive test, I think she is coherent, she is lucid, and I think the defense just doesn't have enough here, Elizabeth.
But she also at one point is searching Neama for ways to commit suicide and searching, can you treat a sociopath? I mean, while it is stark the contrast, certainly, yes, we do have, weird normalcy like the Mediterranean Powerball order just an hour before the murders. But, repeatedly showing up at hospitals saying, please allow me to come in and be treated, and being repeatedly turned away, telling all these, counselors that she was thinking about harming herself, that she was hearing voices. This is very disturbing behavior, isn't it?
No question. It's heartbreaking. And again, I don't want anyone to think I'm insensitive to mothers or postpartum or children, but the law is the law. And the facts of this case don't fit squarely within those four corners of criminal responsibility. The hallucinations, maybe. If the defense can prove that she's really hearing voices, someone's telling her to do something, that is legally insane. That is not criminally responsible. But suicide, it's nowhere near enough, especially when you have enough cognition to Google, hey, do I slit my throat, the carotid artery? Do I turn off my airbags? She's thinking about ways to accomplish this, which leads me to believe that she is there and she's not legally insane.
Brian, you're a defense attorney, and listening to Neama's point about this is what the law says. I mean, it can be one thing for all of us armchair jurors, because that's what everybody who's following this trial, and there's been a huge amount of people following this trial, and everybody's got an opinion, but the law is the law. Do you think at this point the defense team is just hoping for a single juror to say, I think she was absolutely manhandled and mistreated by all these mental health professionals who refused to help her or did the exact wrong thing?
That's a great question. And to start with, in order to prove her defense here, it's not uncommon for somebody to have a mental defect and still function, Elizabeth, in their lives. The law in Massachusetts doesn't require a demon to be in her head and saying, oh, somebody told me to do this, right? This case is going to boil down to a battle of the experts, right? It's hard to have this kind of defense when three young kids who are defenseless are murdered, right? The jurors are already like, look, I'm not going to buy this, Clancy. But it's going to boil down to experts. And if Clancy can put on an expert forensic psychiatrist, Elizabeth, that says the following, that given her whole entire regimen of treatment, given all the overlap of the 13 different medications, given her pleas for help, given her suicidal ideations, that could lead somebody to do what she did while she's functioning still as an adult, then I think you can possibly get one or two or three jurors to buy this. But it's really going to boil down to expert testimony.
Yeah, it's really, wow, this case, my gosh. Neama Rahmani, Brian Claypool, thank you both so much. Really, really appreciate it.